The following presentation is brought to you by the Pride of ODU, the official NIL collective of Old Dominion Athletics. Be a Monarchist. Join the Pride.
Monarch Nation, welcome back to In the Lion's Den with my everyday co-host, Mike Langston, and your show, Coach Tennant McVea. Tennant, man, so much has happened since the last time we talked on September 30th. Let's get right into it.
Yeah.
That next game after we talked was Coastal Carolina. And I know that was a really important game for you guys. It was a big 2-1 win. You know, we'd been talking in the previous podcast about kind of needing to find some direction. Talk a little bit about Coastal and how that set the stage up until we're talking right now.
Yeah, it was, an interesting matchup. Coastal had struggled to start the season, but not a bad side with a couple of really good players that could hurt you. So we had to earmark those guys and make sure that we were on our best in the night. So, it was a good performance for a lot of the game. We didn't give them too many opportunities. We were able to come away with the 3 points, big 3 points for us, after the start of the conference that we had. So that really kick-started things for us a little bit, over the past couple of weeks, a little bit more defensive stability. I know we've talked about that a lot. I think that's something that, we had really lacked at the start of the year. So it was really good for the guys to kind of get off the mark in the conference, and was really proud of the performance. And obviously being at home and getting a win was massive because we weren't feeling the best those couple of weeks before.
Now, you talk about not feeling the best. The last time we talked, you just suffered a big beatdown at Georgia State. Defense was you were questioning what was going on and kind of challenging your guys. And over these last few weeks, they seem to have risen to the occasion, playing some really good defensive ball. What would you attribute that to?
Well, I think we had to have some really serious conversations. I had some, individual meetings with guys. We had to sit down and sort of figure out, what's the motivation? Why are we doing what we're doing? How can we get the most out of our performances? And the guys really responded to that. We made a little tweak, kind of made us a little bit sort of solid defensively, just dropping somebody into the hole behind the forward, which has made us a little bit more balanced. And then I think on the other side of the ball, when we had it, we were getting a little bit too expansive. We were, making decisions that, put us in really poor defensive transition moments. And we really struggle. And even, since then, we've had a couple of those moments where, you take the UCF game where we conceded early and then came back into it, but we got ourselves a little bit too expansive. We try to do things that we haven't talked about, and then we get punished for them. But I think structurally over the past few weeks, we've been a lot more bought into what we're doing. I have to say some of the guys have played individually very well. Like Michael's had a couple of really good games back to back, which has been great to see because, we've talked about this and he knows that he struggled at the start of the season, but, he's really stood on his head. He made a great save on Sunday night against Marshall towards the end and, to save the game for us. But yeah, I just think individual performance and a little bit more solid structurally has made us put our best foot forward, and we've been able to keep another clean sheet and keep other teams from creating big opportunities.
So following that win, you go on the road. Going on the road is always a challenge for a myriad of reasons. You go down to South Carolina to play the Gamecocks. You guys come out with a 1-1 tie there. Talk a little bit about that game and how that went.
Yeah, going down to I really enjoy going down to South Carolina. It's one of those sort of college soccer stadiums and places that it's nicknamed the Graveyard. Great stand. They normally have good fans and stuff like that. So it was their mid-semester break when we were down there, so it wasn't as big a crowd as usual. But we went down. They were on a little bit of a run, feeling good about themselves. So we knew we were going to have to be, at our best. And to be honest, started the game very, very well. I think structurally got it right. We denied them where, they were trying to hurt us, and we scored a really good goal. Lewis got on the score sheet again from a Tegan Dunn cross to go 1-0 up. And then we conceded off a set play not long after. But, pretty back and forth game. I think we created another couple of chances even towards the end. Young O2 had a chance, the keeper made a good save. Jimmy Wynn had a chance in the first half, that the keeper made a good save. We were coming away from that after the few weeks before, getting that win, going on the road and picking up a point. I think at the time, it was like, okay, we can take that, we can live with a good point on the road. But, now in hindsight, with the last couple of results, and the way things have gone, you're going, oh man, we wish, we had picked up those 3, because I think we did enough in that game to do that, and limited them. So, it's one of those ones in the conference. South Carolina, SEC, can do a lot of things that we can't. So, to go down on the road there and pick up a point at the time, we felt good about it.
Now, as a elementary soccer or football fan, looking at the Sun Belt, it is a grind. You have 4 top 25 teams,
Mhm.
and you face 2 of those teams back to back. You played them both very well. You tie Marshall and you lose to West Virginia 1-0 on the road. What is that gap between where these teams are at? And because if you looked at most other sports, you go on the road and you play these teams this tough. I think people will be talking about how good Old Dominion and kind of on the edge they are of becoming like a contender, maybe even a top 25 team.
Mhm.
How big is that gap? Because it doesn't feel like it's that big right now.
No, there's a lot of parity in college soccer. In men's college soccer, there's the haves and the have-nots in terms of what it is that you can do structurally inside your organization, whether that be funding from scholarships. Now there's some NIL floating around. So everyone has their own, catchment and way of doing things, and sometimes there can be a big gap there. But if you look at the top 25, there's some programs that maybe don't have as much as others that, guys have done a great job coaching, recruiting, and bringing players in. So, the gap isn't that big. Don't get me wrong. West Virginia, Marshall, these last 2 teams that we played, really good college soccer teams, really good. But, we've shown even when we played poorly against West Virginia, soccer is one of those games that you just need to stay in the game. Things can happen. It can get random. You got to do the dirty work sometimes. And that's why I think our league is so special. You've got a lot of different teams trying to do a lot of different things, and everyone does it very well. So anyone can lose to anyone on their day, and that is shown. Like, you look at the standings, it's still so very tight. And there's very few times where anyone gets blown out. It might happen once or twice a season, but typically these games are extremely tight, and so a lot of parity. There is a gap in terms of funding and all that type of stuff, but I don't think in the level there's that big of a gap, and a lot of guys do a great job, especially within our league.
So playing 2 highly ranked teams back to back, obviously last year playing Marshall, if I remember correctly, that was a really nip and tuck kind of game as well. Like, it was, you guys played them very tough.
Mhm.
So this year they come down here, and I too am an elementary football fan, but my eye showed me that Old Dominion had control of that game and was the better side during that game. That's just me saying it. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I
Yeah.
think you guys were.
No, yeah, to that, it's like, there's been a couple of these games, where you look at what, you take Marshall as an example, and Chris has done a fantastic job building the program into what it is, national championships, national finalists last year, always in and around it, and Chris has a certain way of doing things, very possession-based style. And some teams, make that decision that that's the way they're going to do. They're going to play at all costs. UCF, we played a few weeks ago, are very much in that frame as well. And sometimes you can go out and say, okay, we're going to go and press, and we're going to try and get really high. What I think we've done a good job of is played off that in the past few weeks against those teams, being patient. We talked a lot against Marshall about don't get bored of doing the right things. If they want to have the ball in their half, and they want to stand on it, and they want to slow things down, that's fine, but don't buy into what they want you to do. They do that because they want you to step into things that you can't get to. Then that creates a pocket of space that they can then manipulate. And we were really careful not to buy into that tactic. Stay structurally sound, and then wait for our moments when it went into areas in the field that we wanted to go and win the ball, that we felt then we could transition into higher, areas, and it's helped us. Even the UCF game, you go back to, again, another game where you're playing on their ego a little bit of, we're going to have it, we're going to do this, we're going to play. I'm like, okay, that's not a problem, but we're going to be in control of the game without the ball. And, I think that's been a very important for us in the last couple of weeks. And it's not always that way. It's not always going to be like that. But sometimes you got to bite the bullet, buy into the defensive job, because then you can hurt teams in the spaces that they're leaving because they do get so expansive.
It was clear that what you were trying to do was working.
Yeah.
Because at least I don't remember what it ended up as, but when I saw the stats the last time, y'all had 8 or 9 shots on goal, and they had 1
Yeah.
at the time. So not only were you controlling defensively, but you guys had more and better chances. So it was, I don't know, it seems like it gets you guys going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, we did a really great job for 75 minutes. And then, like any good team, they had their little spell towards the end too. And, like I said earlier, Michael made a great save at one point coming out, and he got a big paw on it and knocked it away. But you're always going to concede a few chances against some of these very good teams. But I said to the guys after the other night, and some of them looked at me a bit funny, but, we did enough in that game that we should come away disappointed, because you've had chances to win it. We just didn't have the killer instinct in the opposition 18, to really put the game to bed. And in the 3 ties that we've had in the conference against really good oppositions, that I think that's been the difference. It's been good. We've been good defensively. We've frustrated teams, but we just haven't had that killer instinct in the final third. It's there. It's just, we just got to get over that hump right now and be brave and put the ball into the right areas. So hopefully we can continue to do that.
All right. So you got a big week ahead of you. If you look at the standings, we're in the hunt for the conference tournament. Top 8 teams go, but it's a tight race. South Carolina, Coastal Carolina, right there with Old Dominion. This Friday, go on the road against a James Madison team who has had a rough year in conference play.
Mhm.
Talk to us about JMU and what kind of style they play of soccer.
Yeah, look, I've known Paul, the head coach there, for a very long time, and Paul's done a fantastic job building JMU into, a regionally and nationally really good side. And they've had a few really good years. It's been a difficult start to the season for them, and this is where it becomes really difficult. Like, even though they have struggled this year, they're still well in it. It's not like they've been blown out all season. It's been really tight games. Paul's going to have them up for it. So, it'd be really interesting to see. Everyone's trying to figure out what they can do to be successful. I know Paul has played a specific style the last couple of years that has worked for them. They're going to move the ball, but they want to be direct when they can be. Try to play on the front foot. So they know that this is it for them. So they're going to throw everything that they can at, and I know that they will. So we have to be prepared as a team, as a staff. I talked to our guys today. We're going to prepare the boys as best that we can, and work, overtime to make sure that everything and no stones unturned, and we give them all the information that they need. But, this week we have to find an edge, and we've got to go on the road, and Harrisonburg's never, an easy place to go. It's a good setup. It's a nice field. It's going to be a tough atmosphere probably to play in. We know what the JMU ODU rivalry means. We got the best of them last year, and we've got to go on the road and cement the rest of our season, on Friday night. Always a difficult matchup, and I have a lot of respect for Paul and what he's been able to do with that program. So excited to go up there and play a good game.
And with the way the points are, they still have a shot here.
100%.
If they go 2-0 this next week, they're in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that just, again, it goes to show, I think the parity again, within the league. It's tight at the top, it's tight at the bottom, and everyone's playing for it right now. Obviously you always want to put yourself in a position earlier in the season to not have to sweat it, at these times. But, you can't rue the things that have happened in the past. We didn't start off well. We took the red card against Georgia Southern, couldn't get the tie there late, and then you go on the road and you play poorly against Georgia State. That's the position that we're in. This is our moment to sit in it and understand where we're at. And every program's doing the exact same thing. Everyone's playing for position. Everyone's vying to be in the best position and playing the best football that they can going into postseason. Because our league has shown that you get to the tournament, and it's anyone's game, and you just need to get hot at the right times. So I'm glad I've got a bit of experience doing that in the past, and I think hopefully we get a job done on Friday, and then we can really exert our energy into making sure that we can have a good run at the conference tournament.
So speaking of positioning, the 7, 8, and 9 spots all within 1 point, 6 points, 6 points, 5 points.
Mhm.
How do you keep the guys loose? They obviously know how important this game at JMU is. It's a critical game to set you up to where you want to be in the standings. So how do you make that happen?
We just have to control what we control, or we can control. We can control. This week I've talked about, don't waste the second. You can't. There's no time to waste here. Everything that we do, and I don't just mean on the field or when we're at practice. Everything off it. Little things, taking away anxiety, get your schoolwork done. Take care of the things in and around it, so that mentally, every time that you're coming in or as you're coming towards the game, that there is no outside, pressure that you're putting on yourself. So you just don't waste it and control that. And then when it comes to what we're bringing, make sure that whatever it is that the things that require no talent, are we going to work hard enough? Are we going to arrive and run through the wall and put our body on the line? And those things don't require us to be good at anything. It's just an attitude towards it. And then can we execute? And executing, we have done pretty well, over these past couple of weeks. West Virginia, I think, aside, where I don't think we were at our best. But we got to execute. And the boys have shown that they can do that. Hopefully on the other side of the ball, a little bit more going into these last few games. But they've shown that they can do that. And, we've been inconsistent this season, but it's now time to find some consistency with what we do, so that we can put it to bed.
Awesome. Obviously, since you've taken over, this team has kind of been led by a group of seniors. Talk to us about these guys, because next Tuesday at the Den is senior night against Kentucky. These guys are going to be honored. We want a lot of fans there to kind of cheer them on and thank them for what they've done for ODU soccer and Old Dominion. But talk to us about these guys.
Yeah, the two that really stick out, are my 4-year guys, Michael Statham and Mikey Eberly. We've got another couple of guys that will be seniors on the night that have maybe been transferred in, or and we can talk about them too. But I think when I set out to do this, and I think this has changed in college sports these days, and we're trying to create an environment where you want to bring players in, and the experience is over a 3-4 year period, whenever you get your degree, and make a commitment to the program. And we make a commitment to the player, in order to help them grow on and off the field across that time period. So for these two guys, that are real seniors that have been with the program for that long, to see their growth into the young men that they've become, that's special to me. You spend a lot of time with these lads over a period of 4 years, and you see all of the ups and all of the downs, the pitfalls, all the high moments, all the low moments that go into being a 18 to 22-year-old man, 23-year-old man whenever you leave, and you live it with them. So, I think, this being, two guys that, you heavily recruit, you bring in, they've had good college soccer careers, but they've also really grown into good young men. And I'm really proud of them both. I think both have faced a little bit of adversity this year, as the program continues to grow. But both of them have stuck to it. They've been mature. They've led when they've had to lead. And I'm really looking forward to my relationship with both of them once they, finally flee the nest and get out there into the real world, because they're people that I look forward to having an adult relationship with, moving forward. And I think that's really important. So really proud of them, and really happy that we get to honor them on Tuesday. And then you've got, the other sort of cohort that, sort of came after them. Tegan Dunn's into his last year now. We had a senior night for Tegan last year because he was a senior, but obviously, a transfer from Bellarmine that has been, present on the team for the past 3 seasons and has been, a warrior for us. So another player that, will be sad to leave the door. Evan Watt has been fantastic for the past 2 years. He started his first 2 at LaSalle, and then has come up, and, he's been ever present for us, and a great young man, really sharp, really excited to see, what comes next for him. And then some of our 1-year guys, Alex Krashev, Jamie Wynn, Colby Godbolt, I'm probably, missing somebody within there, but there's just so many of the guys, even in the short period that they've been with us, are going to leave something behind. So to have the opportunity to celebrate, them, their contribution is important, but especially for those guys that have been with us through thick and thin over the past 4 years.
Okay. So I have more of a fun question here before I let Mike close this thing out. It seems like every time we record, I learn a new word or two, football sort of stuff. Football's got its own language. Yes, it does. Like I think my last one was I learned with and if I pronounce it wrong, it looks like brace. So you score 2 goals in a
Yeah, a
game.
brace.
Called a
Yeah, you
brace.
get a brace.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was. I thought we were talking about something we were putting on somebody's knee. In the interest of the other novice football fans who are trying to learn, give me 2 or 3 soccer words that new fans don't know, but they should.
You're putting me on the spot right now. I'm trying
Well,
to think.
Tennant, I got one you could explain.
Go
You
ahead.
said it a couple times in this episode. You said purely when you talked about how we played against West Virginia.
Oh, poorly, like
Poorly.
not very good.
Okay.
So not. I'm trying to think of a polite way to put that. We talk a lot about in that game. So I'll give you an example from that. We talk a lot about winning percentages. That's kind of like the dirty side of the game. And I'm not sure if there's a for the American sports, but typically when you win the percentages, and when we talk about percentages, it's like first and second balls. So when the ball's contested and no one has control of it, the first contact, the first ball, do you win that? And then the second one, which becomes then, a bit of, are you anticipating where the ball's going to land? Are you facing forward? Can you get good contact on it? So playing the percentages, winning the percentages, is important. And I think it's important for us as a program. And we didn't do that against West Virginia. So I think that's something that is probably pretty soccer specific, in and around that. I'm trying to
Because
think.
when I heard it, I heard 2 different words. I heard either pearly, which would be like pretty,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or purely, which
Purely,
means
yeah.
like they play like the way you expect them to.
You're just catching my accent there. Poorly, or Ly.
Oh.
To be fair, this is actually my dad's favorite part of the episodes.
Okay.
Where we delve into the strangeness. It could be
Yeah.
an accent or something that goes into the game. So shout out to my dad; he always listens.
Yeah, shout out to your dad. I think what we need to do is I'm going to make a point of every episode that we're going to have a word of the episode. So we have to have one soccer word that if you're not a longtime soccer fan, you don't know what it is, but you get a little smarter each time.
Yeah. We'll keep it clean as well. People hear me swear probably a little bit too much. So
If they come to the games, they've heard it all.
that's very, very true.
Tennant, a phrase I'm aware of is parking the bus, and it sounded like Marshall likes to park the bus.
No, that would be.
Oh, sorry.
A lot of teams would like to park the bus against Marshall.
Okay.
So I think it's actually becoming and it's going through phases. Originally parking the bus, if you go back to like the good Chelsea teams under Jose Mourinho that were really defensively strong, even though they were winning, they'd win a lot of games 1-0. They go 1-0 up and then they just park the bus, break us down. So parking the bus is basically being in a low block. So really defending in your own half, getting a lot of numbers behind the ball, getting really compact centrally so that other teams, have to work really hard or become manipulative around you in order to break you down.
Okay.
So it's become a little bit more common these days. Like football, I heard this the other day. Like football, it's like fashion. There's a lot of things in football, that come around where it's pretty to do this. Someone will watch the World Cup next year, and someone will do something that has been done before, but maybe hasn't been done for a decade, and then it becomes the most fashionable thing, and everyone tries to do it. The big one these days, when you're in possession, is everyone wants to build in a 3-2. Where you send the fullback higher and everything shifts across, and that's become fashionable. Long throws. the set play that when someone gets a throw in, we use a long throw. 5 years ago, everyone was like, oh, long throws, it's just a waste. You don't do that. And now every team in the country has a long throw, short corners put into the box. It's just, everyone has their own way of doing things and everything becomes fashionable. So, parking the bus, I think is probably a little bit more fashionable these days. Everyone's either in a low block or a mid block because pressing sometimes you can be a little bit more susceptible to a more direct ball, which I actually thought against Marshall the other night. I was really interested because Marshall typically are very good at repressing once they've lost the ball and I'll be a little bit higher. But I think the last couple of games against us where we had said, if you're going to press us, we'll play the game there. And we had sort of bit them a little bit that way, so I think they were worried about that on Sunday and were a little bit deeper than I expected them to be. So it's interesting, and it goes with the wind.
I just learned a word, our term, parking the bus. I did not know.
There you go, Aaron. It sounded like what you were talking about with soccer. It's very similar to American football. It's very trendy.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about 15 years ago, no one ran their quarterback much. But the traditional football was all option-based football.
Yeah.
And now we're getting back to that with the RPO being such a big key thing, and it's new, but really it's just a return to the old ways of football.
Yeah, they even this year have been, the big one this year has been the two things in American football that I sort of stay on with. The tush push has been a big one this year, and that's been created some havoc for some teams. And then the whole kicking thing now, that rule change or a little deviation from the rule now has made the game. You've got to think about it, a lot differently because now guys are kicking 65-yarders consistently. So I think that's made a big difference, especially at the pro level. I know less sometimes during college football because I watch so much NFL. Something happens and I'm like, not sure what that one is, just because of the little deviations in the rules. But you're so right. It's like everybody finds a new way. The Wildcat. I remember when the Wildcat came back. And I think it was Miami made that. They were doing that for a while. Yeah.
Ronnie Brown.
Ronnie Brown, yeah.
Yeah. Yep, so it's just, it rings a little different.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, next Tuesday, we need all the fans out at the Den. Game is at 7 p.m. against Kentucky.
Yep.
Could be a crucial one for our chances in this conference tournament.
No, 100%. It's going to be a great game. Hopefully we get a nice night, get the weather out this week. So when we come home, it's, a nice Tuesday evening for it. But, it should be good. It's, you never want to say this could be the last home game of the season. We got to go on the road, probably in the conference tournament at this point. But you never know, with how things go. But, would love that. The community's been great this year. I love seeing the kids on the field after the game. And, even on Sunday, it's late, and you've still got kids out there, braving to come and see the boys. And, that's fantastic. So the more support that we can get, the better. Hopefully we'll have done the business on Friday, to take the pressure off a little bit going into that game. And then really you're just trying to put your best foot forward and play another really good Kentucky team who have had a really good season. And we've got a lot of respect for those guys down there, but excited for that game. It should be a really good matchup.
For the fans that haven't been, especially if you're a dad or a mom, if you've been to a baseball game at ODU, it's very similar to those Sunday games where after the game, the kids can run on the field and interact with these players. It's a very cool experience. I've got
a quick one
right.
for you, Mike. It was the other week and the kids were on the field and after the game, they found a few balls and there was kids playing and then we have our tailgate sort of after here. Our parents, put some food on and it's always fantastic. We get the parents and the team together after. And we're normally here for about 45 minutes to an hour after the game. And there was one young man and his dad and his mother was standing off the side, but they had found a ball and they were just playing in the goal until we were leaving, at close to 9:45, 10 o'clock. And I thought that was fantastic, and the kids really enjoy that experience and it's good for our guys too. So yeah, it's fenced in. Yeah, you don't have any worries. You get a good game of soccer and, I think we're doing a great job that way.
And if your kid loves soccer, there's a bunch of little kids that play behind the net, like throughout the game. So
go to the practice field,
like a swarm of bees.
Yeah.
But Tennant, as always, we appreciate you coming on, man. Obviously, headed up to Harrisonburg on Friday. Go get that dub. After you do that, make sure to stop by Bucky's, plant the Old Dominion flag. Lots of cool stuff up there.
What do you need me to pick you up in Bucky's? Do you guys need me to bring anything back? A couple of sandwiches. Like I'll put them in the bag, keep them warm for.
I would just say bring back the dub, man. We'll be happy.
And get yourself some jerky there. It's about the cheapest you're gonna find.
No, well, I don't buy jerky anywhere. Shout out to Nathan Eberly, Mike Eberly's dad. He always brings the boys down his homemade jerky, which is fantastic. So he kind of looks after us that way.
That's pretty awesome. Hey, before we let you go, do you have a message for Monarch Nation?
It's the season's not over. I know it's been a little bit, up and down with our results, and but I'm really proud of these guys, for the adversity that they've seen this year, and obviously as a staff, we're going to continue to support them so that they can represent this university as best they can. It's a good bunch as always. We want everyone to come out and see them play and get around them and have conversations with them because they're good young men, and we're here to help the community too in whatever way that we can. So just keep supporting, keep backing us, and we're going to represent this program and this university as best we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Coach. It's clear that you've done a great job with this team this year. They're playing their best soccer right now. Go watch this team next Tuesday. Watch them on Friday on ESPN Plus. Cheer this group on. Let's get that dub. Go Monarchs.
Go Monarchs.
Go Monarchs.